All right. Welcome back to the Military Retirement Podcast. What's going on, John?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Going good, man.
All good.
How you doing?
All good. Good. Anybody out there listen to us? We are streaming on YouTube, on the Military Retirement Podcast site, on the Green Logbook, on our Facebook pages, and where else? Kick now. That's something new.
Kick.
So if you have Kick, get on Kick and follow us, watch us, or do whatever happens on Kick. Kick it. Yeah. So
good morning.
Hey, I wanted to kick this thing off, right? No pun intended, with something I just read this morning, and it has to do with federal jobs, right? So I don't know, when you applied for your position, and I know when I did, it was like 5 pages or so, just kind of outlining everything that you did on a federal resume. Right. And that's the norm, right? A civilian resume would probably be about 2 pages. A federal resume would probably be about 5 pages or so, outlining all your stuff. I just read something here, and I'll see about sharing this thing on the chat here. Hey, good morning, Navy cop, by the way. Good to see you again, brother. They have the OPM, Office of Personnel Management, who runs all these, the HR and all that stuff for federal employees. They came out with this reforming the job application process. It says for each job application graded G5 or above, include 4 short free response essay questions for all job vacancy announcements. So they want you to answer some questions, and then they shortened the amount of the length of the resume to 2 pages. So let's see here. The questions are: how has your commitment to the Constitution and the founding principles of the United States inspired you to pursue this role within the federal government? Provide a concrete example from professional, academic, or personal experience in this role. How would you use your skills and experience to improve government efficiency and effectiveness? Provide specific examples. How would you help advance the president's executive orders and policy priorities in this role? Identify 1 or 2 relevant executive orders, et cetera, et cetera. How has a strong work ethic contributed to your personal, academic, or personal achievements? Please provide 1 or 2 examples. It's to me, it seems easier than a 5-page resume, because right off the bat, as I'm reading those questions, I'm like, I can answer these things pretty quickly, right? I mean, especially like having served in the military, you can kind of plug something in there. But I'm curious, man. It's like it went down. They're revamping. The administration is revamping a whole lot of stuff. I actually see this as a pretty good start to it. Like, instead of doing the whole 5-page thing, keep it in concert with almost like a civilian resume. Just answer a couple questions, 4 questions, and you're good to go.
Yep.
Let me see. I'm going to try to.
Yeah, they actually shut off the 5-bullet Friday thing as well just this last week.
I heard about
for
that.
Those out there in the audience who may or may not care about that. The last thing was basically a survey, and it was like, hey, just let us know if you've witnessed an inefficiency, witnessed some kind of fraud or abuse, or if you have a suggestion that would improve things, 10-fold or 20-fold or whatever within the organization,
right,
whether it's your local organization or a bigger organization, the government as a whole. So thankfully, we don't have to do the 5-bullet Friday, but yeah, they're doing a lot of changes, whole lot of changes really fast.
Yeah. So it is, gosh, what is this? I don't even know what page this is. It's page 18 out of 30. It's a 30-page document titled Memorandum, Heads and Acting Heads of Departments and Agencies Merit Hiring Plan. So if you want to read it, cool, go on there. I shared the link. If you don't want to read it, plug it into NotebookLM and have it read it to you in podcast format. That's always a fun thing to do. I was testing that out the other day, and it is. I threw in one of our one of our YouTube videos on there, and it kind of went back and forth. And there has this option on now where you can actually interact with the AI. It's like it pauses, like, oh yeah, hold on, we have a listener's question, and then you can ask your questions. It goes back and forth, and I'm like, where are we living right now? And we just had Camo on last week, and he's talking about AI and the future of AI and how it's going to take over people's jobs and stuff like that. Well, it's going to better people's jobs. The ones who know how to use AI effectively are going to be the ones who thrive in that environment. And I thought to myself, man, this thing is growing super fast. You know, we went from AI movies or videos with people with like 8 fingers to now it's like full on Google VEO3. Have you seen those videos?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like,
I've been checking out a lot of different AI stuff. It's growing. That's why I mentioned in the podcast too the other day with Camo was it's not growing like at this linear rate. It's growing exponentially. Like it's growing really, really, really fast and moving really fast. And it's because of the fact that we're using the machine to create the better machine, right? It's not just humans
you're teaching
doing it by themselves anymore. Yeah.
Right. We're teaching the machine, and it's incredible, dude. And I thought maybe when this all started, this whole AI stuff started, I thought, okay, give it a few years. Let's see where we are. A year later,
No.
dude, I got this thing reading me a podcast just by inserting a YouTube, or you can actually drop that link that I dropped, that opm.gov, into NotebookLM. It'll create an entire podcast format and just talk to you. And I'm like, holy, like, I can't imagine. Like, I can, both scary and excited about it. But in the next 5 years, where we're going to be, you know, don't get left behind. Whoever's listening, don't get left behind. Jump on Camo's course that he's got coming up.
Yeah, I just signed up for. Did you sign up for it as well?
He sent me the link. I'm going to sign up for it. I am. I need to. That whole week, I'm going to be out of office. Well, out of here, right, out of my studio. So I won't be in front of a computer the whole time, but I'm going to try my best to get the training, because I really do, like, genuinely want to learn about AI, dude. It's so interesting, and I've just been playing with both ChatGPT and Gemini. You know, I asked it to teach me about, like, give me a master class on AI, and it just spit out everything I needed with subsections and everything. It's amazing. It really is, man. I'm so interested in that. If you don't know about it, you're gonna get left behind, point blank.
Yeah, it's coming up. I think it's June 9th, I believe, is the day that it kicks off. It's live.
Yeah.
And he also records it and has it saved, so you can go back and watch it after the fact if you need to. But that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. That's going to be pretty late my time, I think. So
yeah. So here you go, Navy cop. Can't wait to take his course. Looking to really enhance my prompting. I know I'm barely scraping the surface. Hey, dude, same. I'm barely scraping the surface myself. You know, I'm asking it to do things, and I just jumped on. Since I started that whole VRD thing and I registered with the college, they gave me a college email and all that. And I was able to register for Google AI Pro, which gives you a year free of, like, the Google Pro. I don't know if that's the actual name of it, but it gives you a year free until August 2026. So that means it gives you one step below the $120 a month, whatever it is, tier. But you're able to play with Google VEO2, Google VEO3, and just in playing with that, dude, I entered a Medal of Honor citation for John Basilone. Right, we know John Basilone, Battle of Iwo Jima, and all that. Carry the machine gun to different places, repelling the enemy's attack. I don't know if I should be standing at attention trying to read the citation or what, but I put the Medal of Honor citation. I edited some of the prompting, and it created this short video on it, and I was just amazed by it. I was like, it had this dude who was like walking through the forest. He lays down on the ground as boots walk in front of him, and then it switches the camera to some dude who is like on a machine gun just firing into the forest. I'm like, holy crap, man, this is really advanced, dude. I would have never been able to do this on my own. This is really advanced. Yeah,
it's
I'm
getting
amazed.
nuts. Just give it 6 months and it's going to be even better, and then 6 months after that it's going to be even better. It keeps growing. I do want to bring up one thing that I just heard about the other day on Clay's channel. The DoD secretary and the VA secretary are collaborating. They're getting together. They're joining forces to help foster veterans and military service members from cradle to grave, basically from the time they put on the uniform to the time they take off the uniform, retire, get out of the service, start getting VA healthcare and benefits and things like that, all the way down. I'm not going to go through this whole memorandum, but here's the memorandum was put out on 26, which is last week. And I can throw a link to it in the chat if anybody wants to check it out. But it's basically partnering the DoD and the VA together, which makes sense. It's a logical step, a logical decision in my eyes. And I'm surprised that more departments aren't trying to do this kind of thing, but we'll see what happens. Like we said, everything's moving fast in the government. Things are going really, really fast. And it seems like that's a really good step in the right direction for both the VA and the DoD. You can start to close that gap on continuity of care between being active duty military and then being a veteran, things of that nature. Right. So,
right. I'll have to read up on this, man. The writing is really small. I'll have to read up on that. No, good info, man. No, all good, but good info. I keep the titles on hand so I can review them after the fact. Very awesome. So with that, John, if you're ready to bring on our next guest, I'm ready.
Yep, absolutely. I'm sorry for the really, really long, ugly government link that I'm dropping in the chat right now, but there's the link for the hate.
I got to scroll just to see that link.
Jesus. Can we just get a link shortener for somebody, please?
Yeah, anyways, yeah, for real.
Let me stop crying.
So yeah, our next guest is going to be Ray German. So Ray is a retired gunnery sergeant of 20 plus years. And I joked about it last week that it seems like any veterans event that I go to, he is there and we kind of meet up. We see each other. I'm like, hey, you're here. Cool. You know, like I'm in the right place, right? So let me bring him up to the stage. Hey, Ray, welcome to the Military Retirement Podcast, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, Vic. Thanks for having me. John, nice to meet you.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
Nice to meet you, sir.
So tell me, man, who is Ray German?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's one of those trick questions you get at all your job interviews. They ask you, who are you? And, you go to all the transition courses and classes and seminars, and they tell you, get your 30-second elevator pitch ready, and as if you're ever going to be anywhere with someone in the elevator for 30 seconds to pitch your idea. But nevertheless, I'm Ray German, as Vic mentioned, a retired Marine Gunnery Sergeant. I served 20 years in the Marine Corps as a legal services specialist, aka a paralegal. One of the great things about the Marine Corps is you do 20 years as essentially a paralegal, but you don't leave with a certificate. So if anyone missed that was a little bit of sarcasm. If we were in the Navy or the Army or Air Force, we leave the service, we have that certified paralegal status. But I digress. I retired in 2020. I did a bunch of programs. I did the Onward Opportunity. I thought maybe I'd be a project manager, so I did their PMP course. I was part of the Hiring Our Heroes Corporate Fellowship Program, and I did that internship with Amazon. And again, I just thought, okay, I'm going to work for the biggest company in the world. And unfortunately, I was one of the 5% that don't get offered a job at the end of the fellowship. And just like in the military, had some ups and downs, some adversity that I had to overcome. And I think it was probably for the better that I didn't work for Amazon. I know a lot of friends and service members that have, and of them, only a couple have stuck, longer than 3 to 5 years. So if you're looking for long-term work, Amazon might not be the one for you. But actually, after I didn't get the job through the Hiring Our Heroes corporate fellowship program, I landed 2 jobs within a month. So during 2020, if you all remember, we went through a thing called COVID or pandemic. And
what's that?
Yeah, exactly. So long ago. But it opened the doors to this thing called remote work. I'm sure there were those that were doing it prior to COVID, but working remotely, it allowed me to do 2 jobs at once. And, the first one kept me connected to the Marine Corps. And that was, I was the associate director of the Southern California Marine Corps accounts on the Combined Federal Campaign. I worked for a company called Travel Tech LLC, and they were one of the administrators. And it was like, I worked for them for 2 seasons, and it was some of the best, people to work for, best time, worked really well with those at Travel Tech. And then I was able to make further connections, stay connected to the military, to the Marines. My 9 to 5 was as a legal operations assistant with a solar energy finance company, Dividend Finance. And again, it was a great experience, great people, really felt at home. But unfortunately, I learned about corporate law in the sense of mergers and acquisitions, and the finance company was purchased by a bank. And unfortunately, one of the bigger parts of my job was licensing. So for a finance company to do business in states, you have to have a origination license, or you have to have the servicing licenses for collection agencies and such. So being under a nationally chartered bank, those licensing requirements are no longer needed. So a big chunk of my job went away, and therefore, I was laid off, position eliminated. And so I was unemployed for about 4 months. And, I was like, man, I got out of the Marine Corps, and I got a job in a month, or 2 jobs in a month. I can't find a job. So I went on LinkedIn. I did a social media post like, hey, looking for work. And within that first week, I had 2 job offers from 2 different Marines. And I chose to take the contract one with Goldberg Maloney. I worked on the Camp Lejeune water contamination cases. And to me, it felt good to help those that had been through, so much. To be honest, I was ignorant of the Camp Lejeune water contamination cases, of what or the exposure that went on there. I mean, I was stationed at Camp Lejeune, and I heard jokes about like, don't drink the water, but I didn't understand what it really meant. And just learning more and more about the history. I mean, who knew that there were like dozens of men that had developed male breast cancer just from drinking water? I mean, it's insane. But so to be able to help them, that was great. But unfortunately, it was a contract, and my contract was to the end of 2024. The deadline to file was August 10th of last year. So the small law firm I worked for, we had over 500 clients. And in between August and December, I was doing case file management and client management. And so unfortunately, the job ran its course. I thought I had something lined up, and it fell through. And so since January, I've been, looking for work. I've been, surviving, I should say. I know one of our catchphrases in all these transition classes and seminars is to thrive, not survive in retirement.
Yeah, that's what they tell you.
Unfortunately, I've been on both ends of that. I was thriving for quite a long time, and it allowed me to do things and take vacations and actually have babies. My wife and I went through the IVF journey, before COVID, throughout COVID, and finally our twins arrived in 2022. But I would not have been able to do that if I didn't have the work that I did since retirement. But right now it's been difficult. It's been challenging. And fortunately for me, I have a strong network. I think, like Vic mentioned, we see each other at all the events, and I've been to Navnet, which is a network that a bunch of like really old timers, but like for me, I get a lot out of it because a little bit of the camaraderie. But I actually got a job.
Old timers know people.
Yeah, I got a job.
I know a lot of people.
the first Navnet breakfast got me that Travel Tech LLC job with working for the CFC. So Navnet works. Just depends on what you're looking for. I went to the SDMAC, the San Diego Military Advisory Council breakfasts when they were paid for by my employer, because it is a little bit pricey now. But I've been to, Veterans Beer Club, in San Diego. The first one I went to was a virtual one, sort of like this, got on Zoom, and everybody, toasted, and around the world and back. Used Veterati when it was around, when it was that was a good resource for me. I've done 4-block. Again, I can keep going on and on of all the different programs I've taken advantage of, and for me, it's helped me. But at the same time, I want to be able to be that voice to make sure that we get it to other transitioning service members, or even veterans out there that say, hey, there's nothing out there for me. They're like, no, did you look at this? Did you look at that? And I'm sure you probably had the same experience, Vic. Recently.
Yeah. So it's so you've been through a whole lot. I mean, you've touched on a whole lot of stuff, man. And and I agree. Like, I've seen you in a lot of spots. I think the last event, I was just waiting for your parking spot because you were about to get out and I was about to get in. I was like, oh shit, it's Ray. So when you left the military, right? When you left the Marine Corps, did you have it in your mind like, oh, okay, I'm a seasoned Marine or military service member. Jobs are just people are just gonna be lining up for me to hire me. I think that's a mindset that a lot of folks have, but then it becomes reality after the fact. Like, hey, look, you actually have to do some work and network. Like, what was your mindset as you were getting out?
Yeah, I mean, because I've actually took advantage of a program called Navy Reboot, which Maurice Wilson heads up, and he's part of the. He created the National Veterans Transition Institute, and he's hosting a senior enlisted breakfast on the last Friday of the month at Admiral Baker now. But and during that, what's that? At the golf course? Yes.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So during that week-long seminar that I went to, a lot of things were thrown at you, and you got asked some tough questions, and they basically put it out there. Hey, you're going to have 3 to 5 jobs, post-military. And I'm like, I don't want that. I just did one job for the last 20 years of my life. I want stability. Right. And yeah, they let you know of all the different programs out there, all the, fellowships and, stuff like that. But, to say you're promised a job, just to say you're promised a job because you're a veteran, that to me, that's not true. You're not going to get a job just because you're a veteran. Will it help you get an interview, or will it help you? Possibly. I mean, obviously there are guys and gals that have been set up for success. Did they do it themselves? Probably, but those that walk right into a job post-military, as far as like, I'm now the CG's executive or whatever, SES this or whatever.
Right.
Those are the rare exceptions, and maybe you do know someone at Northrop Grumman or General Dynamics or Booz Allen Hamilton, or name an industry, service related company. But again, if you have that, great, but that to say that happens all the time is doing a disservice to the transition service member, in my opinion, because so you get guys and gals that get they don't get the jobs. Now they're getting discouraged, and it's like, oh, now they're getting hardened, or they're can't think of the word right now, but basically they just feel like, okay, everything's working against us. I'm a veteran and they're not hiring me. So, but
right.
Again, it can go both ways, but for the most part, I feel like has my veteran status helped? In the job my first job with dividend finance, my first like civilian corporate job, what helped was the general counsel that I interviewed with. He grew up one town north of where I grew up from. So, I mean, I'm from Dearborn Heights, Michigan, right outside of Detroit. He grew up in Redford, Michigan. And literally, like, we were probably in high school at the same time with the age, we're in a similar age. And obviously I had to interview well enough for him to, take a chance on me, because I was actually the first and only legal operations assistant for Dividend. I want to reach back out to the HR person and ask her, why did you, select me or choose me? Because, again, I had no experience in a finance company. I had no experience with a in-house legal team. But, within 3 months, I was employee of the quarter there for the work that I did on the licensing. And
a lot of it is who you know, that the networking piece. I've told John my story here many, many times about, I went through being the legal admin officer to somehow, while I was still on terminal leave, being a training and operations advisor for the Surface and Mine Warfighting Development Center. How? I don't know, because that job requires 10 years, minimum 10 years of surface warfighting experience. I was able to jump on it and jump on classes and learn about this stuff within, 2 months. It was a lot of stuff, man. I'd never had to learn about Tomahawk missiles before, but I kind of learned a little bit about Tomahawk missiles and stuff. But it really is, the network. And are you willing to learn, right? Are you closed off, or are you willing to expand your horizons and learn? And real quick, I want to put this up on the screen here, a comment from Navy Cop. He says, I found it harder to get a job because of a lot of stigma around being a veteran. People appreciate vets, but don't understand what we did or value the OGT we did to advance. Is that, would you agree with that, Raymond or John, that it's harder to get a job when you are a veteran?
Yeah, let John go first. I know
I think you're on mute, John.
Going back to the networking thing, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? It's a blessing and a curse. It's a good thing and a bad thing. It's good that we have the ability to network and get lined up for jobs and set up for employment and set up for things that we need to take care of in life. But at the same time, if that's the way to do it in 90% of the cases, then, the people out there who are just submitting their resumes, who have good resumes, who have a degree, who have all these qualifications and certifications for a job, maybe get pushed out because of the fact that somebody who's networked their way in. So I like both sides of it. I don't think there's a balance between the two, unfortunately. Finding a job and being a veteran, I don't really attribute anything to it. Like, yes, I'm a veteran. Yes, I served. Yes, I retired, but I don't really lean on that part of my life to be like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a veteran, so you should put me in this category of people who you're thinking about hiring. I just kind of approach it as applying for the first job. I just put my resume together the best I can, interview the best I can, show up, dressed to impress and not in my normal t-shirt and flip-flops, and try to speak with some authority and be able to answer the questions calmly and really just approach it as applying for the first job. And I like what you said in the beginning about coming out of service and having that kind of thought in your mind, or people having that thought in their minds that, hey, I've been a veteran, I've been in service, I served my country for so many years, and I should be getting this job. I don't think that's I think that's definitely a hint of entitlement. I think you should treat it like it's your first job interview, your first job application every single time, because in all reality, if you're not networking, if you don't have that kind of in through a friend of a friend, you can only rely on your resume and your interview skills. So I think if you approach it with that first principles mindset, then you'll not only do your best to try to get the job, but you'll also relieve yourself of some of that stress after the fact of like, oh, why the hell aren't they hiring me? Why am I not good enough? Why is my resume not good enough? Why am I not qualified for this job? Those kind of things that kind of bounce around in your head after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, that sense of entitlement or arrogance, sometimes I believe it creeps up to the higher ranks. Being retired, 20 plus years, and you've achieved so much, you just assume that it's going to happen in the civilian side. For me, I've always wanted to, take care of my Marines first and foremost. And, I think that I did that at the detriment of myself, and, in the civilian world, now that you're looking for work, you're like, oh, I got to take care of myself. If the senior enlisted aren't taking care of the junior Marines, like, but who's taking care of the senior enlisted? It's like, you got to take care of yourself first and foremost. And, if you get a job interview because of a referral, that doesn't mean you're getting the job. Trust me, I've had that happen. If you send out 500 to 1,000 resumes, like I have, or job applications, you're going to get interviews. I mean, I've gotten interviews almost weekly. Unfortunately, I just haven't gotten the offer. I'm not sure why. I mean, some companies I've interviewed with 4 or 5 times. It's like, man, it's kind of like overkill with, I've been in the final rounds and, early in the end of April, beginning of May, I'm like, okay, got 2 companies, 2 final rounds. I know I'm going to get one of them. And I didn't get either. And, that might've been the lowest point of, this job search right now. And everyone's talking about the job market and such. And I mean, I just feel like, one, do I deserve a chance just because I'm a veteran? That's hard to say, but, do I
there's
deserve
a percentage
chance?
there that you might, right? Because you do rate like maybe if you're applying for like a federal job, there's like that 30% or whatever it is. That'll put your stack up a little bit more on the resume hierarchy, right? But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's good. I mean, you get veterans preference on federal jobs, which is great. And maybe that's why I got an interview with Border Patrol, but I haven't heard anything since. It's just kind of weird, like how that works. But I got told in an email that, hey, your qualification was 100, and you've been referred to the sheriff's department for County of San Diego. And that was back in March, and I'm like, I haven't heard anything. Am I getting an interview or not? Or it's hard to, like, you get excited for one little thing, but then like I've interviewed with big name companies like AT&T, T-Mobile, FedEx. I've interviewed with small law firms. I've interviewed with, global and national law firms. So it's like, I'm not banking on that I'm a veteran, that I'm going to get the job. I'm banking on that I have almost 25 years of experience working for attorneys in a non-lawyer legal role, that, I have experience in the military, which is my heavy experience, which, I tend to lean on in my interviews. And I don't know if that rubs individuals the wrong way. I mean, I've been told numerous times, thank you for your service. It's very impressive and such. I try to lean on some of my more recent, wins in the civilian world of, like, managing a caseload of 500 clients, or, like I said, being the dividend, champion of the quarter or whatever for, within my first 3 months of being there. So, I mean, and I actually was given an acquisition bonus by the CEO himself for the work I did when dividend was being acquired. And I'm not saying that to brag or anything. It's just the facts that, like, I have the skill set to interact with C-level suite individuals. Like, Vic can attest to, talking to a 2-star general is not foreign to him, you know, and such. I mean, I was in meetings with the general all the time, you know, so like I don't think the moment's too big for me. I just think like whatever that last little bit to push me over the hump to get a job offer. And my wife's big on like, hey, that just wasn't the right one, you know, trying to be positive and, you know, such. But it's like, yeah, but I could see myself doing that job, you know, and I could, and you know, and whether that job,
you put yourself in that state, that mindset, right? So
and
that's the big thing too. I was talking to somebody and they mentioned that when you put 20 years of experience on your resume, you got to back it up with showing advancement in different spots, right? Like if I did 20 years of one thing, people are going to wonder, why did this guy just do that for 20 years, right? And I mean, that's a good thing, you know, being in the military, you go from one billet to another billet as you gain rank, as you know, you might be the manager, now you're, you know, whatever the next level is, director, whatever. So that's just in me talking to somebody about getting feedback regarding my resume. And like, oh, you don't want to put 20 years right off the bat. You want to put so much experience in this, so much experience in this, because 20 years just shows no advancement, right? And it was kind of hard to get away from, but I'm like, but I did 20 years in the military. But yeah, that's what did you do though? You know, at some point it becomes administrative, just like our last guest we talked to, Camo. He's like, yeah, at some point it becomes administrative, and you're not actually doing like the AI, the work of, you know, structuring the AI. You're just supervising. You know, you got to get into the details of what you're actually supervising and what you've been doing for the last 6 years, 10 years, you know, et cetera.
Hey, Vic, do you remember Mark Braun?
It sounds, I got to see a face, man. It sounds familiar though.
Yeah, a little skinny white guy, but I mean, he got out as a master gunnery sergeant. But I wish I had taken the one thing from him. He has these green logbooks.
Yep.
And they're like detailed notes of every minute of every day in his Marine Corps career.
Yeah.
So like when he brought me into counseling, he had it written down. Like everything that he did, he like detailed. Like I don't know, like, you know, where he got that from. Like, I guess being on MSG maybe or whatever. But like he wrote every single thing down. So like there's no like, oh, what did I do for the Marine Corps? Because sometimes, you know, and in the legal field, we have numbers, we have stats, we have like tangible things that we did as far as these are the amount of clients we served, or these are the you know, you can say I processed over 1 million documents, and we probably wouldn't be lying. But I mean, what does that mean to a civilian side? But I mean, think about guys and gals that do obscure, you know, MOSs or jobs. Like, I mean, just go into the infantry. Oh, I'm a leader. Okay, a leader of men. But what does that translate to? Like, are you just going to go into a leadership position at, you know, such and such place? I mean,
knife handing everybody.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know, like it's just weird. Like I look at my resume and I feel like it's been tightened up like over and over and over again. And I've done you got to tailor your resume to the job that you want. Like there's like my industry is legal, non-lawyering legal professional. Like there's only so much like tailoring I can do to my resume to make it fit the job descriptions that I'm looking at.
Right.
But yeah, it's like I feel like I have what it takes, you know, but it's like, man, just give me that one opportunity, put me in, coach, you know, and you know, I'll bet 300 for you. You know, I'll be your 40-40 guy or whatever you need.
That's the hard thing too, because for every one of you, there's like applying, there's probably 40 or 50 other people applying for the same job who are as qualified or possibly more qualified and even underqualified or less qualified, should I say, than you are. So it's tough because you don't know what your competition is. If you could see, like, okay, this guy's got a master's degree, this guy's got this, maybe now I know why he got hired.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I went to a networking event for the legal operations field, and it's called Clock. It was like a regional clock event. So the Center Legal Operations Consortium, and I'm talking to this this individual, and she introduced herself, and she actually got a role that I interviewed for back in 2023. Like she, you know, it was just ironic that I ran into the person that took the job that I interviewed for. Like, and I'm looking at her, I'm like, no, I like looking down on her or anything, but I'm like, man, I could have been doing that job the whole time too, you know? So yeah, it's
resume. You should have asked her for her resume.
yeah.
Let me see what you bring to the table that I don't. Damn it.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could throw in something real quick on that very thing right there, I think that's something that a lot of people maybe don't consider is also there's a lot of unknowns that you don't know about going on in the background in the job hiring space specifically. Like, oh, by the way, I got 30% veterans preference, but oh, by the way, a military spouse has preference over me. Right. In any situation, basically. So there's things like that. And it's funny that you mentioned that. I bumped into, as soon as I got hired on, I bumped into the guy that came in and took the IT position that I applied for 2 years ago that they hired for. And the reason why they didn't hire me or didn't call me back or didn't do the interview process is because they had to pull the position back down. They had to adjust some things and then repost it. And I never saw it reposted and never reapplied for it. And it's kind of funny how that works out. But yeah, there's a lot of things going on in the background that I think people just don't consider. Like they pull the job descriptions down, they have to repost them up, or if they have a hiring freeze, or if, you know, they want to hire internally, they still have to post it, go through the process of looking at the resumes, do selections, and then and ultimately select, you know, the internal person that they had, the candidate that they had lined up for the job. So there's a lot of factors in the background that I think people don't really take into consideration when they're thinking about these things.
And Ray, I think you're doing it right, man, because you're going to these events. I mean, everyone that I've been to, I think I've seen you there. You're going to these job fairs, you're going to these veterans events, and you're actually going out there, as I like to say, pressing the flesh, right? You're shaking hands, you're looking people in the eye and saying, hey, here's what I have, here's what I can do for your organization. And people want to work with people that they like. You know, if you're not going to these events, you're just a piece of paper on a stack, right? Or you're just a digital resume on a stack, you know. So they actually get to see you, they get to interact with you. Like, hey, that's that Ray guy. I think he's good. He did 20-some years. He knows about this. He knows about investigations, paralegal stuff. He might be a good fit. You know, if folks are just sitting behind their computer and not doing it and just submitting resumes blindly. And I understand that sometimes you can't do it because sometimes these jobs are remote and they're located elsewhere. And then you really are a piece of paper, right? But when it comes to like something like LinkedIn, whenever I apply to something on LinkedIn, I make sure that I go to the hiring person because it's always listed on there and just introduce myself. Hey, my name is, good afternoon. My name is Victor. You know, I'm just introducing myself. I applied for this position. I think it'd be a great fit, et cetera, et cetera. Please feel free to check out my profile, whatever. I don't know if that works or not because I've not gotten a LinkedIn job or anything, but I'm just saying this is like in my mindset, this is what would work. This is what I've received from folks when I'm actually interviewing, like when I'm going to these job fairs. Hey, have you tried reaching out to the hiring manager to let them know, hey, to greet them? And I think you're doing it right, man, because you're actually going out there and meeting folks and shaking hands.
Yeah, I got a career coach from Wounded Warrior Project, and he tells me I need to be more like cheerful or more like emanated or kind of like, because I talk and I'm just talking, and it's just the kind of person I am, I guess. I mean, you know, I told a joke earlier in the show, and most people didn't, you know, understand the sarcasm or the joke or whatever. And you know, I'm not the funniest guy in the world, but I feel like I'm funny. So maybe that's the problem. But no, I actually went to a thing with ASAP, the Armed Services Arts
Partnership.
Yeah, and man, we did like a public speaking type thing where everyone went around and kind of stripped down your vulnerabilities and stuff like that. They have a one for like stand-up comedy. I know I can never do that, but man,
let's do it, man. I'll jump on it if you jump on it.
Yeah, well, Danny Bahena. Yeah. We'll look into the next one then. We'll try. Like, I know when I got on the phone with my brother, we just go back and forth, and it's like I feel like, man, we're cracking each other up, but yeah, it's more about being witty, I guess. But I mean, that kind of leads to one of the things that I've been thinking about doing is getting involved with something that I love, and that's sports. My wife says, hey, if you can get paid for watching sports or talking about sports, that'd be, you do what you love. And I started my own YouTube channel. I haven't really done much with it yet. I've wrote a few like little articles on LinkedIn. Just I'm from Detroit, love Detroit sports, and for me, it's just trying to see like, okay, I could sit behind a microphone, or I could pound out some keys on the keyboard there, and put some sentences together that make sense, and but you monetize that, and what's the next step in doing that? I know, I'm thinking about, going back and getting a master's, but, what do I want to, dedicate my time to as far as that looks like? Is it business? Is it, some type of sports management? Is it, communications or media, such. So I got a lot of decisions to make, but it's like, man, it's like, what's next for me? It's like, well, I need money like everyone else in the world, need a job. You want to call it a career, that's great. But, it's just trying to find that one right thing. I mean, I ran into somebody at the VBC, and he mentioned that he started a franchise, or he got in on a franchise. And I was like, man, that'd be nice. So I had the capital to do something like that. And it was for a gym. And I've seen that, like a lot of that going around, different gyms popping up around the areas, and it's like I got a brand new EOS gym right down the street from me in Lake Elsinore, completely packed. There's a lot of empty spaces in Menifee. Imagine just having a different gym. So I don't want to go to EOS. It's too packed. I'm going to go to D1 Box or Redline or whatever name you want to put on there that you're now the franchisee owner of. Is that something I want to do? Like, man, I know it would be a lot of work, but so there's options are out there, but it's kind of like, right now it's just, like I said, if I could just start working for a team, a lawyer, a company, a corporation, and then kind of like catch my breath for a minute and be like, okay, now let's plan the next 5 to 10 years, because more likely than not that this job that I'm working may not be there in 3 to 5 years, because that's just the way things work in the civilian corporate world, where you can't just. That's right. I mean, I've interviewed with people that have been with companies for 20 plus years. I'm like, oh, that's what I did in the Marine Corps. So it makes sense that they've been with AT&T for 20 years, or they've been with T-Mobile for 17 years, or, stuff like that. So it's kind of like, now to find your footing for that second time for that longevity, that's what I'm kind of looking for. And, I'm not looking to be a job hopper or bouncing from job to job or anything like that to try to, climb a proverbial ladder. If I work for, ABC law firm for the next, 10 to 15 years, I'd be happy, just doing that. But,
and I think that's the progression of veterans too, as they leave, right? Because they've been doing something for so long that they're used to that, right? So they want that continuity after the fact. At least I know I did. And then I'm like, okay, after a year, let's see what else is out there, because maybe you're bored of it. Maybe you didn't envision that for you. Maybe you think the grass is greener somewhere else, right? And then, or maybe like the money talks to you, whatever. Then you switch careers. So I completely understand that. You brought it up earlier. These veterans who get out, they are probably going to encounter multiple jobs within a few years of getting out, as they kind of find what they want to do. And like surface and mine warfighting development wasn't really for me. I loved my job there, and I loved a lot that I learned there. But let me try this thing at the Navy, for the Department of the Navy. Let me try that out. Now let me try something else out. See whatever fits, right? It's kind of like building something with Legos. See what fits for me. because I'm not, unless I become something that I did in the military, I'm not going to find that again, unless that's exactly what I want to do. Or even unless you go back as like a GS in the MOS where you were working. I know a lot of folks who do that, right? And you can certainly do that. Is that something that kind of fits with you, like going in as a federal employee in the MOS you were?
Yeah, I mean, I've applied to a few positions, that will be closely related to our field, but the more I think on it, I feel like I need to have my own identity outside of like, okay, I'm going to go back and work for the Marine Corps as a federal employee. A federal employee, I mean, I could work for, any other agency. I could be with, Border Patrol or, the U.S. Attorney's Office, or there's different government jobs, but, I even would look closer to home as far as local and like county jobs or city jobs. I mean, I applied to a office administrator for the city of Menifee. I haven't gotten any word back yet. I mean, I would like to think that I could do a job like that, but I mean, it would be a lot less money, but I would be 5 minutes away from home to work, and there's no commute, and there's, I'm not eating out, or, the cost of, of working, on site, it would be relatively less. But, yeah, I just, you try to keep your options open, but then it's like you have this broad spectrum of what you can do. But then it's like, if you narrow it down and focus and say, this is what I want to do, maybe it becomes easier. Because you can be like an office administrator for, Army, Navy, Air Force, whatever. Now, let's say you're going to go into HR, but there's different types of HR. It's people operations. Are you doing more of the like billing and such? So it's like so much you can do, but lots of times if you keep it so wide open, you miss, what is right there in front of you. And if you had a more, granular or narrow scope of like, okay, I want to focus on this type of industry and this type of role, and, maybe put your energy and effort into that. I mean, again, I've done it both ways, trying to expand my scope, but then at the same time, trying to zero in on like, okay, I'm going to do just a contract manager's job, look at contracts and but then it's not expanded back out to everything else. Like, it's like, man, there's so many different options out there. And, it's like, sometimes you have to keep that narrow-mindedness, and sometimes you have to, go open-minded. So it's a balance, I think.
Yeah. That's, contracts is not fun. So I think you know that, and I know that as well. I'm sure John knows that. I went to a job fair and I talked to, is it Lockheed Martin? And they were looking for, since I had a lot of experience in contracts, but I didn't want to do contracts. I wanted to go and do what they were doing, like the recruiters. I was like, hey, I want to talk to the people. I want to be out here. And they're like, oh, based on your resume, you'd be great for contracts. I was like, I don't want to do contracts, and they're like, what? And I'm like, I simply don't want to do contracts. That's it. I want to do what you're doing. Like, I want your job. And it was probably the wrong thing to tell them. It was like the first job fair I ever went to. But they're trying to fit you in their company somehow, but yeah, I completely understand, man. And it's, you got to take care of number one. You talked about it earlier. You got to take care of number one. And sometimes when you are transitioning out, it feels like you are not taking care of your Marines because you are focusing on number one, right? I guess what did you do as you were transitioning out? Like how did you take care of yourself as you were leaving? Like you assigned somebody else, maybe a staff sergeant, to take over as you're focusing on the retirement. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, luckily for me, it was pretty easy and seamless, as far as I didn't really work the last 4 or 5 months of I was able to do the Hiring Our Heroes Corporate Fellowship Program, and then I had the Navy Reboat Seminar, and then I had some terminal and some house hunting leave, all the leave and everything that. So we calculated it out with a good friend of ours, Henry Gonzalez. We went down the line of like,
I know Henry. Yep.
Yeah. So we were, man, that office, it was myself, Henry, Crystal, Ledbetter, and I think one of the Williamses. We all like retired within that same like time frame.
The whole crew.
Yeah. So it was interesting to a time frame for that legal department or whatever. But for me personally, it was easy as far as the transition itself, like the time off to take care of myself. And right now it's like I want to get settled and on a job or career, so that way I can then turn my attention to helping veterans that are struggling, that have done or that are on the struggle bus like I am. I want to be able to turn around and pay it forward. And I've tried to reach out to Marines currently still on active duty that may be thinking about getting out, to let them know, hey, it's not easy. And I heard it, through other Marines that, I don't have the time. I went to the MEA, the Marine Executive Association. They have a military transition assistance seminar they do quarterly. And one of the guys that was there was a first sergeant. He said, "Oh, I just don't have time. I got to get back to my Marines. I can't be here tomorrow because, da, da, da." And I'm like, you're doing a disservice to say that you can't do something because you don't have time, because you have to be there for your Marines. Because guess what? Your Marines are still going to be there, but they're not going to be there for you.
The mission continues.
Yeah, exactly. So they're going to be there and they're going to continue to do what they do, but you're going to be out and they're not going to be there for you. Like, unless one of your Marines has a connect in one of the jobs that you want to get into, more likely than not, that's not going to happen. So yeah, we got to get out of that stigma of like, oh, I got to take care of my Marines. Because I'll be honest, I let all my Marines go get their green belt, Lean Six Sigma green belt, but I didn't go do it, and stuff like that, So even like with other trainings and stuff, I'd always put them first, and then the hit list comes around, Gunny, you still have to do this, that, or the other. And I'm like, yeah, well, I want to make sure they were trained first. So yeah, that mentality of turning it off is like, you got to take care of your Marines are now your family. Whatever your fire team looks like at home, that's what you got to take care of. So you got to put yourself in the best position to do that.
Yeah, there's a saying that I heard before is I gave the Marine Corps the best of me and I gave my family the rest of me. Right. So you're giving everything you have to your service, Army, Air Force, Navy, whatever it is. And then you're bringing home the rest of you. You're tired, you're worn, you probably, haven't done as much for yourself as you should have, like you just outlined, the green belt thing. It's just a matter of realizing, especially during that last year, that I got to focus on me. And a big thing was when I was transitioning out was talking to my OIC, having that sit down with him and saying, hey, look, I'm going to be focusing on myself a whole lot. Things are going to get done. Trust me, because I have people who can do the job, who know the job, on the job. And I'll be by every so often to check things out. But here's what's going to happen. I need to go to these appointments. I need to go to medical. I need to go to my TRS. I need to do all this stuff in order to successfully transition out. And as long as you have that conversation, they understand, right? As long as you have somebody in place who knows the job, who's knowledgeable about leading the thing, if there's a special project coming up, have that talk with that person. Hey, this needs to happen. Fill me in. Give me a call if you encounter any issues. Hit me on the hip or whatever. I have my cell phone on me.
Yeah, I think one of the mentalities we need to get through our skulls, or to let our those that are currently serving in those roles, if you get hit by that bus tomorrow, the job is still going to go on. The Marine Corps is going to go on. That contract's going to get finished. That court martial is going to trial. Whatever it is, if you're not there, the machine continues. So, I don't know how much interaction you have with Marines still on active duty. For me, I would love to be in one of the VSOs. I applied for DAV. I applied at Wounded Warrior Project. To me, I would love to have that interaction to be able to continue to help those serving, because again, we mentioned it early in the podcast, nothing's given, the only thing, is given is a thank you for your service. And those thank yous can only go so far. I appreciate them, every day that I get them. And, but I didn't do the job I did, for thank yous. I did it because, I had that calling to serve, and now that calling has ended, you still have that feeling of, fulfillment. You want to fulfill that calling. How do you do that? You can do, locally, you can do it, for me, we had a HOA veterans group, and it's just fallen off. Like, I'm like, okay, I know there's veterans in this community. We were meeting, and all of a sudden now we're not. Like, it's almost like I want to take the mantle, and the Veteran Beer Club out here in Marietta, Temecula area, I feel like we can be as big as San Diego, if not bigger. How many Marines live in Temecula, or sailors, live in Temecula, Marietta area?
A ton.
Yeah, so it's like we should have more than 20, 30 people at an event. So look out for some stuff from me.
Maybe you're the man.
Yeah, I got.
You're the man for that, maybe.
Yeah, we got I think we're gonna have a big event next month. Last Thursday of every month, we're gonna try to make that our standard meet date. But we might have something big for June, and hopefully we can get some of the northern San Diego residents to make their way towards Temecula. So it's gonna be great.
Yeah, the issue that I see with that is the traffic on the way back.
Yeah,
that's one thing. Yeah.
I mean, if I'm willing to go from Menifee downtown or to Midtown or to Lore County and then come back, maybe just I'd love being around Marines and veterans. But I mean, hey, like I said, we're gonna have something pretty special lined up for the Veteran Beer Club in Temecula, Marietta area in June. So.
What, if anything, is like your key criteria besides the job lining up kind of with your skills and your resume? But what are some of the, like, outside of that, maybe outside of the box key criteria that you're looking for a job? Like for me, for example, I was looking for the ability to PCS and move all my stuff from the States, to bring my car over, to set up things to be able to potentially purchase a house. Those kind of things. Like, it didn't have a lot to do with the job specifically, and I'm working outside of my regular field from the military. I just kind of veered away from that, and I took off a big chunk of time before that. But are there any key criteria, like maybe soft skill type key criteria that you're looking for in your job search or your job search?
Yeah. At the Navy reboot, there was like a quadrant, and I can't remember all four, but I know one was like location, one was like had to do with your salary expectations, and then there was probably like two other things that came into play on, like, all right, it's sort of like when you decide you want to buy a house. You're going to buy a house, the location matters, the cost matters, but then also like the size, or how far away you are from your job, commute. So just like buying a house, I think selecting a job that you want to do, I look for roles that I know that I can do, like, and some that speak to me as far as being like, this is perfect. Like Monster Energy. Everyone drinks energy drinks, in the military, probably too many, but yeah. So they're up in Corona, and they've had like a legal administrator job posted multiple times, and like I just haven't gotten an interview. I'm like, man, I wish I knew someone that could just get me the interview so I can work for a company that has, that I have connection to. Working for T-Mobile or AT&T, they're the biggest telecommunications company in the world. Like, I feel like it has stability. Working for you know, a FedEx, you know, they're not going anywhere. You know,
Right.
it's like
Yeah.
you work for companies that you know that are established, and you know, I interviewed with, you know, probably one of the biggest law firms and made it to the final round, the biggest law firm globally. Like, so I'm like, that has to say something, like where, you know, I didn't get selected, but, you know, I got to that point to where I was one of the last candidates. And, you know, it just spoke to me that, like, you know, I can do the job at any level. And more recently, I interviewed with another law firm. They're national. And I know I can do the job. I know I can work for them. But, you know, I'm going to say the dirty word. They're high on diversity, and I know that that's something that's, oh my God, what's, you know, DEI, you can't speak about that, it's not, doesn't exist or whatever. But you know, it's important to me. You know, I'm married to a Black woman, I got interracial children, you know, and you know, for me, you know, I'm half Mexican, and you know, I check the boxes. So you know, am I going to get a job just because of those things? No. But I mean, if I'm working for a company that embraces, you know, people of color, and, you know, give women a chance in the boardroom, like that, you know, to me, it's like working at Dividend. That's why I loved it so much, was because of the diversity that was there. And, you know, I was a part of the DEI community there, and, you know, to not necessarily say, oh, we're going to select this person just because of the color of their skin, but to promote those that are doing it in spite of their skin color. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, to me, so that's like one of the topics that really, you know, I try not to get, you know, too jaded about things sometimes. And it's like, you know, I remember affirmative action way back when, and, you know, it's like, you know, it's so hard to say because, you know, we worked with qualified individuals in the military. I mean, I honestly can say I can care less what color they were, or what, you know, sexual orientation they were, or et cetera, you know.
Right.
And it's like, you know, you can do the job, and you do the job well, and you care about the people that you work for and you work with. That's what matters. And, you know, for me, yeah, this last company or law firm that I interviewed with, you know, they're very, very high on, you know, embracing the diversity that they have. And to me, that's, you know, something that calls to me. You know, I'm a, you know, multiracial, you know, individual, and, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's tough to embrace who you are when others don't do that. You know, it's like, how do you embrace yourself?
Yeah.
You know,
It
So,
aligns, your values align with their values, and that I think I would write that in that one of those other quadrants, or in that kind of circle of
yeah, that's values. Yeah, that's
alignment.
definitely one of the quadrants. You're right, John.
Yeah.
Because it's
Excellent.
You can talk about culture and that, and then sometimes people say, oh, if you talk about work-life balance, you know, that's a dirty word to talk about at an interview as well, and you shouldn't mention that. And I'm like, when I worked at Dividend, they didn't call it work-life balance. They called it work-life integration, and they were all about it.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to make sure that their employees, you know, were taking care of themselves and their family members. And, you know, that way, when they are doing the work that they're doing for the company or corporation, that, you know, they're bringing their best. They know that, hey, my family's taken care of because they allow me to do that, you know. And I feel we did that in the military, or at least good leaders did that in the military, where you allow your Marines, you know, your sailors, your soldiers to take care of their families, because once they come back to, you know, pulling triggers or hitting the keystrokes, they're doing it with a clear mind and conscience that, hey, if something's happening at home, you know, I got the leadership to let me do it. So, you know, kind of goes into play, like, you know, work culture. You know, I had a couple interviews where, you know, they emphasized how fast paced the work was, as if they were trying to talk me out of, like, the job itself, like as if I couldn't handle a fast-paced environment.
Are you ready for it? Are you ready for it, Ray?
Yeah. So it was kind of weird, you know. I was like, I'm pretty sure I can handle a fast-paced environment, but thanks for letting me know that you're so busy that, you know, we're going to be working, you know, 80, 90 hours a week, but your job is so important. That right there, it's like,
Yeah.
it didn't matter that I didn't get a second interview or I didn't get hired by that company. It was just kind of like, I almost wondered why I got the first interview in the first place. Like,
They're trying to detract you from that, maybe, you think?
I don't know. That was weird. It was like,
Yeah.
in that case, I would have just rather gotten the standard, thanks for applying, but we're going with candidates more aligned with our, position or role. Like those canned emails, at first they kind of like ticked me off, and now I'm like, oh well. Like,
well, do you ever reach out to the hiring managers and ask them, hey, look, just some feedback for my own situational awareness or for my own, education?
Yeah.
What set the person apart that got hired versus me?
Yeah.
You ever do that?
I have a couple times, and I usually get the we're just going in a different direction. They don't really give you the honest feedback that you're looking for.
Right.
And for me, I mean, I've had it a couple of times where it was just a location, like you were just too far away for us. I mean, it was in Del Mar, which
Right. Oh yeah.
about a little bit, hour and a half, whatever. But like, it's like just south of Oceanside, no big deal. One was in Brea, which is just north of Irvine, and my daughter goes to school at UC Irvine in the Army ROTC program. And if I get a job in Orange County, I'm like, okay, now I'll be able to see my daughter more because, Vic, I don't know if you have college kids yet, but they don't come around when they're in college. They're done. They're like on their own. Yeah. They're doing their own thing. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we got some comments here from Navy Cop MA1. I'm just curious about this one. So it says, so easy to just assume the worst or to second guess reasons why you are passed over for something. I assume some agism, while it could be that I need an informational resume versus a chronological one. So I know Navy Cop has brought this up in the past too, because he's a little bit older. He's brought up like the whole ageism thing, right? Do you think that may play a part in your hiring or in your search for a position? Like, hey, we're gonna maybe hire somebody who's a little bit younger because we'll keep them around for longer. I don't know what the thought process is.
It's funny because I mean, it has a little bit. I mean, it's funny because I feel like I still look like I'm 30 something, or I know I don't feel it, but that's a whole nother story. But
damn knees.
I mean, knees, back, hip, but you name it.
Everything.
But no, I mean, it crosses my mind at times. But like the thing is funny because I'm essentially applying for roles that are quote unquote entry level, or maybe like teetering towards mid level, to where it's like they want 3 to 5 years of experience or 5 to 7 years of experience in a certain field or industry, and I'm like, well, I have 20 years of experience, so like, yeah, I can do the job type thing. But no, I mean, obviously I think no one, like, I understand the hiring process a little bit better now, as far as companies just don't go through the process just to go through the process. It costs them money to do that, so they're trying to bring in someone that's going to be there 3 to 5 years and or longer. They're not trying to hire someone only to rehire someone 6 months to a year to 2 years later, because that costs them money. So I try to emphasize that, hey, I'm not necessarily looking for my next role, but potentially my final role. And if I could work for a company or a corporation for the next 10, 15 years of my life, that's what I want to give. And not necessarily saying, okay, I'm going to go entry level with a company or corporation.
But you're showing them your commitment to potentially what it would be.
I'm willing to do more within the company. If I get hired in as a, legal operations assistant, eventually I would like to be a manager. Eventually I would like to branch off. Like, if it's okay, you're now not necessarily the paralegal, but you're managing the paralegals, or if you're working on one aspect of the company, but you're going to move into another aspect. So there's more than just, okay, I want a job or one job, and then that's it. I'm continuously trying to grow myself, and I would love to find a company where I can grow within that company and corporation as well. To find that's part of the culture as well. Do they support and develop their individuals? Because I know you can look it up on Glassdoor or whatever of like, some of the feedback on there from individuals. And I mean, I don't know how much you can take for a grain of salt, I guess, but it's almost better to, have those informational interviews or conversations with individuals that work there. Hey, what's the turnover look like? The longevity, and do they embrace movement within the company or corporation? So, a lot of times you can ask those questions during your first interview, and I mean, more likely than not, you're going to get the same answer. Oh yeah, our company does this and that, and you won't know until you're there. But I mean, are you going to get the honest feedback of, we tend to recycle, individuals quickly, like at Amazon, I guarantee you Amazon doesn't, in those interviews, they don't say, hey, we have a high turnover rate, of 3 to 5 years.
No, I've heard the same thing, that there is a high turnover rate there because they expect so much, right? It's all about efficiency, right? I mean, who can fault them? I mean, they were one of the biggest companies ever, right? So they need to be efficient. We do have a question here from Christopher Brown. I want to put up on the screen. Question is, if you can go back in time, would you do anything differently to prepare yourself for post-military life while still in? It's an excellent question.
Oh man, yeah. It's hard to think about. I mean, I guess when you put in that Appendix J, or say, okay, I'm going to retire now, whether it's 6 months out, a year out, just start planning and preparing as early as possible. I mean, I don't know, I got my degree right before I retired, so that was like number one. I had to make sure I had that, bachelor's degree before I retired. And, I mean, the only thing if I even go further back, it's like, man, should I have stayed in the legal field all 20 years? Maybe I should have done something in like public affairs or combat camera or something. Like, those are like bigger life decisions, I guess, of like, oh, I could have done this or that. But preparing myself, I thought I was doing all the right things, and I think I'm doing all the right things, as I transitioned, and I've called it retransitioning when I lost my job the first time. So now I'm like retransitioning, and unfortunately, I'm doing it during a time frame that on a national scene where the job market is so unpredictable.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I mean,
I love this question too, because I thought of this myself, and Christopher, if you're out there listening, I put up a video on the Green Law Book that talks about 8 things that I would have done differently. But I like, German or Ray, that you mentioned, doing something a little bit different and not doing one thing for the whole 20 years. And that was part of my thing too, is I would have probably searched for different billets outside of the specialized expertise, so that way I can get exposure to different things, right? Like you could have done, for instance, be a paralegal, but find or talk to the monitor, whoever does the changes, be like, hey, is there a chance for this billet here for operational law, or for, whatever it is, environmental law or something like that, something to that effect. Even going like TAD more or searching outside of the certain MOS to see when there is downtime, to see about different courses being offered by different services, right? Interservice training. Like, for instance, I love the training that they provide for the legal MOS over in Charlottesville, North Virginia, which is an Army school, an Army JAG school, right? The Judge Advocates Legal Center and School. Great training out there, and you get to see how the Army does it. And sometimes you got Coast Guard and Air Force, even Navy, and, all services within one. So you get to learn what everybody does. And that looks huge on a resume, especially when you have interservice stuff like that, interservice training. I for one, and I'd like to get both of your perspectives on this: enlisted training versus officer training. Okay, this has been a big topic, even when I was in on. Yeah, there's a ton more opportunities for officer training. They go in, at least in the legal field, they can go and get their LLM, their master's degree, right? they spent a year over at the Judge Advocate General School. The equivalent of that is, I suppose, for the enlisted side, using your GI Bill, which they made people use their GI Bill to go get a paralegal certificate or paralegal degree, right? Unless you're using tuition assistance. But I think tuition assistance would only cover a degree seeking a degree, right? An actual degree, not a certificate. So I know a lot of folks who complained about that. I don't know if there's any progress with that, but is there any kind of training, Ray, or even John, that you wish you would have gotten at looking at the enlisted side? And then John, for you, like on the officer side as well, like, is there any kind of training that you wish you would have gotten that would help you now as a civilian?
Well, yeah, I mean, you remember you go into corporal's course and sergeant's course, and then advanced course. And I mean, all that training that we did, you know, it could have been like almost equated to an associate's degree. And I know they maybe had talks about that at the at TCOM and stuff, but you know, could you imagine, you know, if you took your training and as a junior Marine, and then you got out after 4 years and you already had an associate's degree, or after 8 years?
Yeah, that'd be great.
And that'd be, you know, that's one little step in the right direction. It's funny you mentioned different like cross training or different billets or whatever. You know, no one loves going to take a piss test, you know, the SACO, but it was funny.
I love it, dude. Come on.
Oh yeah,
come on.
Yeah. There was a job for the UFC with their urinalysis testing. So if I had been a SACO, you don't think I would have had some type of like experience to, you know, at least apply for that job, you know?
You do have experience, man. You've taken it. You know the processes. Just, but imagine if you were the SACO and it's like, oh man, I can go work for the UFC, you know, on their urinalysis program. Like, so stuff like that, like little things that, you know, I think if Marines like, oh man, I got stuck on this duty or that duty, like, you know, there's stuff out there if you just look hard enough. And I mean, I went to the Air Force with the Maxwell Air Force Base, their Judge Advocate School down there, and did the law office management course, and again interacting with, you know, the Air Force and Army and seeing how they do things differently. It's I mean, it was pretty wide eye opening, you know, and you know, so interservice training, I think that's great, but it is a little disheartening to know that, you know, as officers you can go get your master's degree, you know, paid for, and you know, and I mean, that would be nice to know that that Marines had that in their back pocket. You know, I know, like I said, the Navy, at least the Navy, I'm pretty sure the Air Force and Army do it as well. You're coming out as a certified paralegal, and you know, does that, and unfortunately, that's one of the things a lot of jobs I'm, you know, looking at. You know, do you have your paralegal certificate or a degree in paralegal studies? And you know, I have a degree in political science with an emphasis in pre-law. So I mean, is that close enough? I have 20 years of experience working as a paralegal in the Marine Corps. Is that enough? Like, you know, under the 6450 of the California statute, certified paralegal, I believe I check all the boxes, but it's like, you know, it's, you know, I got myself out of a job because I didn't have enough experience in the mortgage industry, you know. So I got to the final round, and they you know, they kind of overlooked that I didn't have a paralegal certificate, but you know, they couldn't go forward because I didn't have the required experience in the mortgage industry. So it's like, you know, I worked for a bank and a finance company, but they wasn't the same, you know. So it's kind of like, you know, that's kind of tough too. You know, a lot of these jobs have strict requirements because of compliance matters, and you know, if they ever get audited, they want to know that, you know, they have the right people in the right jobs. And, you know, I understand that it's a little, it sucks, but, you know, you just kind of, you know, move on to the next one, you know, and find that job or role that, you know, fits, you know, the training that you received in the military, and to know that, hey, I've been cross-trained, or I've done other things. Like,
how many times did we go to the range, as a staff non-fire? And
as a staff non-fire, not many, not for me.
No.
Once,
well, for
maybe.
me, yeah. But I'm out there supervising a range,
Right.
Marines or whatever. And so I go to Navnet breakfast, and there's guys, with the industry, NavWar and such, and we run the ranges on the, North Island, and we're looking for individuals, Da, da, da. Now, I know I don't have that exact experience, but, and it's not something I would want to do anyway, but there's Marines out there that could do that. They just have to look for that, go to the breakfasts, go to the networking, and find the roles that fit them and what they would want to do, post-military.
And for John, like when I used to go to these courses, like at the Judge Advocate Generals in Charlottesville, Virginia, and this is me as a Chief Warrant Officer 2, Chief Warrant Officer 3, right? I had my bachelor's degree at the time. I was sitting next to Army folks who had like their doctorates, who were Chief Warrant Officers, right? And I'm wondering, I'm like, how do you have the time to do this? And does your command really let you go, like give you the leeway to do that? I'm still trying to understand, like, is the Army more civilian education focused? Because I know the Marine Corps is always about the mission. How does the Army's mindset work?
Yeah, I think we have a lot more time. Like we do the training, and I guess it depends on your MOS and that kind of stuff. But I know, and also depends if you're Compo 1, 2, or 3. Like if you're active Title 10, if you're Title 32, if you're Title 32 on active duty orders, like that all kind of plays into that. But I know that we as a force, the Army pushes education really, really hard. And we encourage people, and with the TA and all that stuff, like you can literally, like if we kind of say it amongst ourselves in the Army, like if you're in the Army for more than a few years and you haven't utilized TA, which is tuition assistance, to be able to then, work on your nights and weekends while you're still potentially single and not married, don't have kids, and you're not doing that, because a lot of cases they'll look at that for promotions as well. Even on the enlisted side, they'll look and see like, hey, have you been working towards your associate's degree? Did you complete it? Is it aligning with the things that you're trying to do? So they kind of, not like a requirement, but they definitely look at it, and they push people to get training. And luckily in the MOSs that I was in the Army, both enlisted and warrant officer, was the IT tech field. And that field is heavy. It's similar to the legal field. There's a lot of certifications that you have to have in order to do your job properly. And in a lot of cases, like the 8570 requirements for the DoD trickle down to the Army and say, you have to have Security Plus, and you have to have CCNP or CISSP or the certifications you might need for your specific job roles, and the ability to be an administrator on a network and do things like that. So, but we also have a lot of programs that I think they're mirrored across the other services. Like we have the Army Cool, which is one of those programs that I believe is still in effect. And I'm pretty sure the Marine Corps has it, and the Navy has it, and potentially the Air Force, where you can take certifications based on your job, your MOS, if it lines up with your MOS, and they'll actually pay for some of those certifications and things like that. I was digging as we were talking in the beginning about the paralegal, and I think there's a way you can line that up with the Marine Cool program. I believe that's what it's called. But on the other side of that is something that myself and Victor are both exploring right now, the VRE program. We dove deep into it last week, where you could potentially go and sign up for the VRE program if you wanted to get that legal certification, or even the legal degree to go along with your qualifications and skills and your resume. I think that would be something that would certainly be available, depending if you meet the requirements for veteran status, disability status, and all those things. Excuse me. So Yeah, I feel like the certification thing and the training side of things, as you mentioned, there's a ton of resources that a lot of people don't actually know are available. A lot of different job opportunities that are available, and I feel like we dig into a lot on the education side as well. Education things that are available, like the PMP, for example, through the University of Syracuse. Is another one of those kind of things that they'll just pay for it. They'll put you through the boot camp, and they'll give you all the resources and just pay for the certification. I think if you're out there looking, you'll find different ways. The Yellow Ribbon program is another program. I don't know if it's available to veterans, but certainly for active duty service members, there's a Yellow Ribbon program in the Army, at least. And I'm sure they have something similar in the other services that helps kind of offset some of those costs and gives you access to tools and resources for things like certifications or, things like that would help you. Because I feel like, especially in the legal field, I feel like that would certainly be a requirement to have that paralegal certificate. IT field, the equivalent would be like a Security Plus or a CISSP. There's a HR certification that HR specialists should get if they're going to go into the HR field outside of the military. So there's always it seems like there's more and more certifications lined with specific job types, and to serve in active duty or serve in the military and not like put that on kind of your roadmap as a checkbox along the way. I think you might be hurting yourself in the process, but I think there's always a way to like come back and hit those up and take care of those certifications along the way as well.
So I'll tell you that the DoD Cool, unless they changed something in the last year for the Marine Corps, it's only for enlisted. I tried to jump on the DoD Cool and I was denied a couple of times. I tried to submit a waiver. They're like, sorry, it's just for enlisted. And I'm like, damn, because they have some good stuff on there. I was pissed, but it is what it is. Enlisted has to get their education too. Completely understand.
John, you did mention about the Army and their education requirements. I mean, that bodes well for my daughter. So, I mean, she's going into her junior year in the ROTC program. So, or finishing up her sophomore year. But so I told her she could be, she can go in the service, but she's got to be an officer. And I told her, don't go Marine, because I know how the Marines treat, female officers. And unfortunately, I mean, I don't know how much better it is in the Army or Air Force, but I mean, I want her to be able to break that stigma of like, female officers being, looked upon being, of a lesser, officer. It's like
lesser caliber.
It's like, I mean, I want her to be able to stand on her own 2 feet too, and be like, I mean, absolutely. I'm an Army lieutenant, or however far she wants to go. But I can't wait for me to be able to give her first salute. That'd be
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'll be able to. I'll have to shave my beard and get in my uniform for that, but
it's worth it. I think it's worth it, man.
Yeah,
it'll grow back.
Yeah, exactly.
So we got a few comments here. Rudy Muriel, who was on the show before, says, hardest part for me, combat arms, MOS, recruiting background. Number one, I didn't know what I wanted to do after 13 years. Number two, most importantly, I didn't know the job market to where I was moving. So true. Yeah,
I mean, that's one of the things at the transition seminars that I've been to, or, definitely location. I mean, if you're going to move, you have to do the research, and
absolutely.
My wife and I, we've talked about moving a couple of times just because San Diego and California is so expensive. Thought about Florida last year. We actually did a little recon visit, and no, it wasn't for us. It's too, rural, too like backwoodsy type thing. And at least the areas that we looked in, unless we were going to like South Beach or something, it wasn't what she had in mind. So, and then, so we've got thoughts of maybe moving to the DMV area, and, it's easy to say, oh, I'm just going to get up and move. But, one, do you have, a job? Is your job transferable in that area? Or, You know, are you working remotely and they're cool with you being on the East Coast, vice West Coast,
Yeah.
and such. So yeah, you definitely got to do your research on where you want to, you know, plant roots. And I forgot the first part of his question, but oh yeah, the combat arms thing. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, there's so much, you know, that's the thing. If you go to these, you know, resources, like whether it's the MEA, Military Transition Assistance Seminar, the Navy Reboot, you know, you go through the one that you have to go through in the service. I can't even remember what the heck it's called now, but you know, the transition
TRS.
seminars they give it. Yeah, TRS. Yeah, you go to that and it's like you only get wave tops, but you get to like, oh yeah, you're like you said. This goes back to the earlier question of, oh, we're going to get a job just because you're a veteran. Combat arms, you have you do have a set of skills. You know, it's more likely than not people skills, and you know how to manage teams, but you still have to have knowledge within an industry. Just to think that you're just going to go into a biotech firm and be a you know, operations manager
leader there.
Yeah, does it happen? Can it happen? Yes, I know someone personally that was I can't remember his rank, but he went to geonomics during our corporate fellowship program, and he's, you know, thriving and succeeding there. Now, you know, what biotech MOSs are there? Yeah, there are none. You know, we're not
unless
into
you're in the Navy.
You know, yeah, maybe then, you know, stuff like that. You might, you know, like specialized, like, you know, the one thing about going to the Navnet breakfast is, oh, I'm a service warfare officer. I'm a SWO. Like everyone's a SWO. Like, so what does that mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, when you go into a job interview or you know, a position of leadership or authority, like,
right,
you know,
right.
how does that translate? You know, you have to be able to, you know, so I can understand that frustration. I think that's one of the things where I'm lucky is like in other MOSs, you can be lucky as far as IT goes, or, you know, with comm, or, you know, MPs, or with the security or whatever. Like you have that specialized skill and you just have to be able to use it. Now, how do your combat arms, like if you're an artilleryman and you're you know, a trade that doesn't even hardly exist anymore, you know, how do you know, translate that to working in a civilian corporate world? And, you know,
right.
It's a good question, and I wish I had the answers to that. I know there's jobs out there they can do, and I know there's people that have left combat arms MOSs and you know, become, you know, lawyers and become you know, different. You know, you're definitely going to take a pivot, and unless you're doing private security for somebody or something like that, or getting into an agency, you know, and continuing, you know, some type of dark secret ops or something like that, you know. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, yeah.
So when I was working at the Surface Warfare or Surface and Mine Warfighting Development Center, I got a message from a guy, and he was asking about how he wanted to make a transition over, right? He got out. He was a Navy SEAL. He was part of DevGRU, which is it looks like Naval Special Warfare Development Group. You know, very accomplished guy. You know, did a lot of training, SEAL background, and he wanted to transition over into where I was, because I had put it out there like, hey, you know, I went from this MOS and I went to this Surface Warfighting Development Center. It pays really well. You know, the benefits are awesome. So he reached out, hey, dude, how can I get my foot in the door? I was like, dude, how do you transition your time as a DevGRU, a Navy SEAL, to this? There's a ton of stuff you can do, right? But how can you transition that? How can you explain that? You know, of course, there's leadership. Of course, there's a whole lot of stuff that goes along with it. But I told him, don't be like me. Don't take your fitness reports and just copy and paste them into a resume and then send that off, because that's never going to work, right? You know, so there is a finesse. It's an art and a science, I think, and that's where, like, you know, these folks that help you with your resumes, you know, like Hire Heroes USA, for free, right? They do it for free. They kind of help you transition or translate your stuff that you've done over to the civilian side. Those things are great. Another thing is just learning the AI thing. I mean, I'm on this AI kick, dude, because there's so much you can do with it. And that has helped me take a resume and quickly translate it to a job description of where I want to be. Take this that I've done, take this job description and translate that into a resume format, you know, and then of course you got to go in there and move stuff around, make edits and all that. But that, I mean, there's so much you can do with it to help yourself. And a part of it is, a big thing is education, is continuous education, right? If you stay stagnant, and as they say, stagnant waters stink. If you've ever been near a swamp or anything like that, you mentioned Florida, there's a whole lot of them. Stagnant waters stink. You know, if there's no movement, it's going to stink, right? So you got to stay ready. You got to stay prepared. You got to stay moving forward, always moving, because the job force, the workforce is going to keep moving forward. If we don't move with it, we're gonna get left behind.
Yeah, I recently volunteered for the North San Diego Business Chamber. They had their annual business summit, and I was put in charge of the AI rooms. And yeah, I mean, whether we like it or not, AI is here. It's well beyond here. It's developing at a rapid rate. And you know, one of the things they mentioned was that don't think of it as you know, something to replace your job or replace, you know, humans. Look at it as a tool to make your job. I think it was mentioned earlier, to make your job or make things easier. And you know, you mentioned the video. I'm sure you could probably, I don't know if it's been done yet or will be done soon. Like, you probably can write a movie through AI.
I'm sure you could. It's out there.
Yeah, the whole entire script would be AI and such, and you know, developing characters or developing, you know. So I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit scary, because if you're, you know, back in the day with the boomers and cell phones and stuff like that, they're like, what's this, you know, and like this sorcery or wizardry, you know. But yeah, man, I feel like I need to do more with it. I know there's some, I think Google has classes. Some of the stuff, it's like, you know, as veterans, you want to make sure you get every discount you can, you know. You go to you go shopping, or you go to the restaurant, hey, you got a veteran discount, you know. So there's definitely veteran discounts out there for courses and certifications, or not certifications, but I guess there would be some type of certifications with the AI out there, but
it's going to come down, I think.
So,
and I think John's going to put it up here on the screen real quick. So our guest,
you can start right here, man.
Yep.
Yeah. This is our guest from last week, Kyle, and he is a cyber officer, isn't he? He was a cyber officer in the Marine Corps, and
cyber warrant.
He teaches veterans how to utilize AI.
Nice.
And my mind was blown when he was just talking about it. I went through a couple of his videos on YouTube. My mind is blown at the capacity, at what you can do with this stuff. And he's got a course coming up on June 9th. So definitely, Ray, I mean, if you can message him or get a hold of him, jump on that course. He mentions, you know, he's willing to help out veterans and all that. So definitely touch base with this guy, because he knows what he's talking about. Half the stuff he was talking about, him and John were like just going at it, talking about all this stuff, blockchain and this. And I'm like, I need to learn all this stuff if I want to be an effective human in like the next year.
I mean, these are the nerds that, you know, you made fun of and pushed into wall lockers, or, you know,
never do.
Exactly.
Never.
Man,
not anymore, bitches.
I don't have that brain that to turn it on, but like to learn about it. Like, I mean, I'm sure John's probably a little bit younger than you and I, Vic. I'm probably the oldest one here, but
I don't know.
You know, working with you know, computers, like, went from, you know, taking a typing class on a typewriter to, you know, the first advent of computers, of like, you know, you're in college, and you know, chat rooms, and like, you know, just how it all grew. Like, in the 80s, for me, it was like you put in your little floppy disk and you're playing like
Yeah.
The little Space Invaders on the computer in the green, and yeah, so everything's like
On your Commodore 64.
Yeah.
TRS 80.
Yeah, it's
There's
like
no more A/S/L when you're in chat rooms. No more of that.
Tech keeps moving at a secular rate of like, it just keeps going up and up and up as far as what it can do. And like, I can only imagine what my 2.5-year-olds are going to be able to do,
Oh yeah.
In the future. Like, yeah, so it's a great time, but it's a time that you could get left behind if you're not willing to embrace it. So
100%,
it's like,
man.
It could be a little bit scary, but at the same time, if you look at it as a challenge or something exciting, that can bring, like you said, make things easier. Like, oh, you need a script for a podcast, or you need again, I got ideas in my head, and it's like sometimes I feel I wish I could just get the ideas out of my head onto paper or and into something and have it be regurgitated to me. But half the ideas are probably off the wall and off the wall.
Off the wall.
But, yeah. But who knows what.
And you can do that. You can put these ideas on paper. You can do that. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's just,
and they can do it by speech now.
The time to do it.
You don't even have to write or type. You can just talk.
Yeah.
You can talk into a mic or a computer, and it starts to take what you're saying, and then it'll do what you ask it to do. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah. So Ray, so we're coming up on about 2 hours now, which is crazy because I didn't even realize the conversation has been flowing, and I love stuff like this. But let's see. Can you give me 3 pieces of information for folks out there? 3 pieces of advice, being that you've seen a lot going from the military to civilian, learned a lot, had a lot of experience. Can you give 3 pieces of advice to folks out there who are going to be coming up on their transition, or maybe are having a tough time after they left the military?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it first and foremost, take care of yourself. I can honestly say that there's been times when I didn't, even post-military. Health is a big issue. If you're not, staying active in the gym or on the roads or doing something, it's going to show. You don't have to weigh in. You don't have to cut weight to make, standards. But, I mean, I see pictures of myself sometimes. I'm like, man. But, and then the longer you go without, doing it, it's like, but then you get back into it, you're like, oh man, this is great. So, health and, your fitness will help with your mental. So like, if you're able to take care of yourself physically, the mental will go with it. Just imagine how you feel after a run or a workout. You got all these endorphins running. And, that's one thing I know I neglected over the last few years. And, something that as Marines or as soldiers, for the most part, if you're in a military service, physical fitness was a large part of your life, and, I posted one of my workouts on LinkedIn just as a article or whatever. And it just kind of brought me back to those days of like training Marines and, being in shape myself, and then not to like live into the glory days, but just to remember that like, our time here is limited. So, you should, you want to feel the best that you can. You definitely need to continue to take care of yourself.
That's right.
Physically and mentally in that sense. And second is know you're not alone. That's the biggest thing. You kind of touch on it a little bit. I forget the 22 and 22 or whatever it's called. The suicide rate amongst veterans is, way, way higher than it needs to be. And, we should never feel that we're in that position. But if we do, just know that there's resources all around you. And, the worst decision is to make a decision that can never be undone. So, we have to that, and again, that ties into the first point of taking yourself health wise and mental wise. It's like it all ties in together. So if you have a network of family, friends that you can reach to, you have that one mentor. I'm blessed that I have one that I can call him any time of the day, and he's going to answer the phone, and I can bounce ideas off of him. He can give me the hard truths, and so that that's a big part of that number two thing is it's not as desolate as it feels sometimes. It's not, you may go through some heartbreaking times, but that's just life, and so
right.
For me, you always got to have that network, find that one mentor, someone that you can lean upon and rely upon, and again, and then if you can, be that person for someone else, that may give you that purpose, and so it's like, definitely got to find that purpose, and so it goes from like health and mentals to where you won't delve into that, becoming a statistic to now then how do I pay it forward, and I know it's not just one or two or three things that I'm saying here. It's kind of like you categorize things, and it's almost becomes like a circles that are like you ever see those charts where you have the three circles, then they kind of interact and intertwine.
That's right.
So for that final aspect of someone's helped you along the way. No one has ever done anything on their own without support or assistance from others. You could be the self-made millionaire, I guess, but those are few and far between. But I'm sure they had something along the way that gave them support. So if you can do that for others, once you quote unquote proverbially made it, or in a set of circumstances where you can assist, and to give back, to me, that's the final piece, so it's like, almost like a trinity of like, taking care of yourself. So, and then you can take care of your others, that kind of like, it all comes together, and for me, it's kind of, it's important, you take care of your family, you take care of your Marines, that's the biggest thing that you did in the military or in the service. You take care of your troops or whatever. But once you get out, you got to take care of your own. You take care of your family, and then remember where you came from, and continue to take care of those that the veteran community is a caring community. So
it is.
I go to VBC events. I go to, the North San Diego Business Chamber events and such. You see people, time and time again, and, what you want to call them, a friend or, acquaintance or whatever. It's your battle buddy that you see, once a month or whatever. And, you check up on, and they check up on you, and, you share stories or whatever. So find your community, and support them as they support you.
Excellent, man. Well, I really appreciate you, coming on the show, sharing some wisdom, sharing all the, your entire journey that you went through. I mean, it's not an easy one, as we know. John and I talk about it all the time. It's never an easy journey when you're trying to find something new, get into a new mission, find a new passion, purpose, etc. But, it's something that needs to be done, because nobody can stay in the military forever. At some point, we're going to have to leave, whether it be 4 years, 20 years, 30, 40 years, doesn't matter. At some point, we're all going to find ourselves here. So we really do appreciate it, Ray.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Vic. Long time coming with it, to be here. And John, thanks for reaching out again. And you guys are doing a great job here. And hopefully one day I'll have something rival this, on the sports scene, and yeah, I don't know what I want to do next. You might be hearing some kids screaming, so it's time for me to get off. So I guess I've lost my headset. Like, I only got one headphone, and it's like died, and I'm like, okay, well, sorry about that. But, yeah, so at least it's not for a job interview today, huh?
All right, Ray. Hey, good having you, brother.
All right, man. Thanks a lot, man.
Good to meet you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Al.
That was a lot of good info, man. It's great to see
Yeah, man.
the like up front from the perspective of somebody who's going through it, you know, the ups and downs, the ins and outs, just the work from the ground up, what you have to do when you transition. It's not going to be easy. We all know that,
Yep.
Especially if you're trying to move into something completely different. It's not going to be easy. And John, I listen to podcasts as well, right? I don't just sit there and listen to our podcast, which everybody should anyway. So,
Right.
but I was listening to this podcast I like. It's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck podcast, right? I don't know. It's a book. The guy, Mark Manson, I believe his name is.
Yep.
He was the author. He runs the podcast. So he had an author that I like on there, Stephen Pressfield, who wrote Gates of Fire, who wrote was it the War of Art, right?
The War of Art.
Yep, The War of Art, great book. And they mentioned something that kind of stood out to me, and I just kind of wanted to share this here real quick. Turning professional is free. If you keep dabbling, you waste time and money. Go set up an LLC and set a schedule. No dipping your toes in the water. Build time into a schedule. Build a place in your home to get it done. So they were talking about how people are just so scared of doing the thing, right? Just people are not scared, they're hesitant about doing the thing, right? Like turning pro. You can be a pro in anything as long as you know a certain subject enough. But yeah, Stephen Pressfield. I like Stephen Pressfield anyway. He talks some good stuff. He's got some good books. I love Gates of Fire, The Warrior Ethos, and all that good stuff. But it just kind of resonated with me. I was walking the dog this morning and I was like, you can really be a pro in anything. You know, you just have to put the time and effort in, put it on your schedule, and have a repetition going, a purpose to your day. So that all goes into it because I was reading this again, and I feel like every time I go to get into something new, I open this guy up, the War of Art, and I highlight things, and I highlight things, and I love it because it kind of gets you out of that area of, I don't know what I'm going to do next. Well, read this and it'll kind of give you some insight on maybe what you should be doing in order to do that next thing. Great book, man. Break through the blocks and win your inner creative battles. Awesome book.
Yeah, and it's good to note also that Pressfield, I don't think he actually got published till he was in his late 40s, early 50s, right? He'd been writing
52.
and writing and writing.
52, he said. Yeah.
So he took him a while to get there, and he didn't do a military career and then jump out and try to do something. Like, he was doing writing for quite some time where he got picked up as an author, and then it just took off from there. Yeah, man. I was actually reading a book this past week, and I got some little highlights in my book as well. The one I want to read here, it's on page 73. You are not alone in this journey. There are so many who have traveled the same path before you, and so many who will travel the same path long after you leave the military. We are all in this together, and although this is a rudimentary guide, it's something to consider when getting ready for your journey. It's from
what book is that?
From our book.
I like it. Our own book, bottom line up front. I completely forgot about. I read that thing like 30 times. I'm like, that sounds familiar. What book is that? Bottom line up front. What
trying to check out the proofs and see if we can get this thing on paperback. It's nice to actually have a physical copy. If you see it, the book is like super thin. It's not so super thick. I wonder if we can make it a smaller size to fit actually in the pocket. Yeah, it's really nice. I actually gave it to a guy the other day who's retiring just now from the Navy. He said he's going to look it over and put some red marks on it and send it back to me, or give me a couple screenshots or something. But trying to get that on the press so we can get that out to people in physical form, because I feel like physical form is like the form that us older gentlemen and women like a lot more than the digital form, unless you're a super nerd. So
no, I love putting marks on the paper and writing things in the margins. I'm one of those guys. So I love that stuff.
And that's That's one of the beautiful things I noticed about the paper version too, and maybe on the digital version as well, but there's plenty of empty space at the end of every chapter, every section, where you've got plenty of space to write down notes, take notes, write down doodles, scribble things, write down phone numbers, whatever you want to put on there. There's plenty of space in here to do it. It's almost like a kind of a notebookish feel to it, but with some words and paragraphs and stuff in between.
Yeah. We'll get some done, and then I'll go around and talk to the folks at the exchanges and see if we can get these in the exchanges. Maybe do like a little book signing or something like that. Hey, let's sign this out, and all good. Let's see. Last up from Navy Cop here. Dad had a 3,700 book library. Something about it makes it real. So true, man. And I wish I had a 3,700 book library, but I can't. My wife won't let me. I have too many books that I don't read already, and I got to get through all these first before I get anything else in this room. So very true, Navy Cop. Thanks for sharing. But yeah, awesome episode, man. Thanks again, John, for your time. Thanks again for sharing some great insight, man. And look forward to continuing to provide great information on the Military Retirement Podcast. You can find our anybody out there still listening, the Military Retirement Group on Facebook it is growing. I just approved like 9 more people yesterday, so it is definitely growing. A lot of great stuff in the Files tab. My own channel, the Green Logbook, on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. We got the Military Retirement Podcast on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Kick now. So we're kind of all over the place, but in a good way. Right. So please reach out to us if you have any questions, comments, maybe want to be featured on the show. info@militaryretirementpodcast.com, and we can get to talking.
It's great to be here. I enjoy this. I love this. I love doing this. This is one of the favorite things of my week to do, and just look forward to a lot more of these.
Same. All right. With that, out here.
Have a good one.
You too.